There's nothing here. There's nothing there either. Okay? So welcome back, guys. Hey, focus. Something. It's not trick time. We're doing a video about lifestyles with healers. You know, because a lot of people say that you have the wrong lifestyle. Right? Right. Yeah, I know. Anyway, so that's the topic of today's video is there one lifestyle only for your cattle dog? There's nothing in there, I promise you. So a lot of people over the years of me doing this channel has made it quite clear that cattle dogs should just be on farms only, and that they should have never been out in public or to the rest of the public for, you know, being a companion for people, etc. You know, farm life is the only life. Whoa, don't do that. Come over here. While I understand you're making this very difficult, get over here and sit down. While I understand, don't lick my elbow. While I understand people's opinion about that, and I understand their, you know, their viewpoint, I don't agree with it whatsoever, and it's for quite a few reasons. Because if cattle dogs are not supposed to be anywhere else in the world except on farms, then nobody should have any type of working dog, period. You know, huskies shouldn't be anywhere. German shepherds. You want to talk about terriers? A lot of terriers were originally bred for work, whether it was working on farms or working to get rid of vermin. You know, if you go looking up all the dog breeds that we have created, it was always for us to either have them help us with farming or something, and we don't live like that, unfortunately, you know, like we did. So that's one reason I don't agree with it. And another reason I strongly disagree with that is what happens to all the other cattle dogs? If we can't give them all farms to work on or country living, what happens to them? They get unalived. Like, so wouldn't you rather have a cattle dog go to a home that's loving and willing to give it as much as they can, versus the alternative? I mean, that's just kind of how I look at it. I think instead of scolding people for, you know, how dare you get that working dog, I think you should try to educate them on how to make the working dog's life a little bit better. Make it comfy, Gypsy. So let's talk about different lifestyles. So obviously the number one is farm life or country life. You know, if you have a farm and have cattle for them to work, obviously that's a good thing to have for a cattle dog. Or even if you just have a lot of land. Woman, stop it, you're throwing me off back there. Even if you just have a lot of land, obviously that kind of ties into farm life. I know farm life's different than just country living. I mean, farmers work really hard, but they kind of fall in the same category. If you have all that stuff, then yeah, usually safe to say your cattle dog's going to be happy. But sometimes you'll get a cattle dog for farming and it ends up being like Winnie the cattle dog. Have you seen Winnie the cattle dog on YouTube? Like the cattle dog fearful of cattle? Like I would think Cleo would be kind of in the same boat as that. Sometimes you get the working dog and the dog doesn't want to work. I've also seen another one riding around on the tractor on the farm versus actually hurting the cattle. But there's also dangers with country life. I mean, some cattle dogs I've heard of getting killed by coyotes. I've even heard from some people that their cattle dogs got ran over by, you know, cars, tractors. Like, it's, you know, freak accidents that can happen. And I'm not saying this to be mean or hateful against country people. I love country folk. Don't take it this way. But there's a lot of really bad situations sometimes out in the middle of nowhere where cattle dogs, or not just cow dogs, you know, there's hoarder situations out there sometimes, and there's hoarder situations everywhere, that's not what I'm saying, but I've seen some very abusive cases come out of country living. And again, that's not me saying anything bad, I'm just saying there's good and bad in all situations. So when I hear people say country life is the only life and the best life, which, I mean, I kind of agree with it. That's my goal someday. But there's dangers and other bad situations out there too, just like any type of lifestyle. Now, suburbs and cities, I hear a lot of people ask how do cattle dogs even end up in those situations? Like, and to me, that answer is very simple. Like, breeders will sell to anybody. Not many breeders will well, okay, I should say good breeders will ask where their dogs are going. But most breeders or puppy mill places or like pet stores that sell cattle dogs, they'll sell to anybody. So that's how they end up in suburbs and cities. And also, I wish people would realize a lot of shelters and rescues are actually more within city limits than out in the boonies. So that's not, so those dogs end up in these situations. I shouldn't say, I don't like saying situations, these lifestyles, okay? So living in the suburbs, like, I mean, I grew up in the suburbs. We actually had a dog that was a working dog when I was growing up. She was a border collie poodle mix, but she was an amazing dog. I mean, she definitely had working drive in her, and she was an amazing protective family pet. Now, I can say we had a fenced-in yard, which our yard was huge. Like, we had like at least an acre or whatever total. You actually can have land if living in a suburban area. Like, some of these houses that I grew up near had, you know, 1 to 2 acres. Even though the houses were close together, we had land. So she had plenty of room to run. So I don't think there's anything wrong with having cattle dogs in suburban areas. But I would recommend always making sure you have it fenced in. Heck, even if I make it to the country living, I think I would still have a fenced in area for my cattle dog anyway, just to try to give them more protection. I think suburban lifestyles are fine with cattle dogs. I just think you have to be cautious with them in that area. And you have to be even more cautious with them if you're living in more of a city area. And I don't understand why some people, when they hear cattle dogs living in a city, they automatically think New York City. Granted, I have seen a couple of cattle dogs online who actually do live in New York because they were adopted through shelters, but you know, that's neither here or there. But anyway, I wish people would stop assuming all cities are like that. Like the city I live in particularly, there's a lot of people here from the country. There's a lot of people here from Kentucky and a few from Tennessee. And there's plenty of people here because they need work. So they're working here so they can get back to the country. And guess what? They bring their working dogs with them. You know, like, or they get a working dog here because they had one when they were living out. You know, I just wish people would stop assuming that just because you live in a city that you haven't had any other experiences or any other walks of life. And not all cities are the same. I myself have been middle class white trash and somewhere in between. Like I've had different lifestyle experiences myself. So just because somebody's in the city or the suburbs right now doesn't mean they don't deserve to have their working dog with them. And some people are just more drawn to working dogs, period. I mean, like I said, I grew up with a working dog. I have a strong work ethic, so maybe that's why I'm so drawn to all working breeds. I will admit it's a little bit harder living in the city because you have so many neighbors potentially around your property. Again, definitely would recommend a fence in the city. The higher the better. There's definitely a lot more distractions for your dogs in city life, but you know, that just kind of ups your dog training skills. You gotta look at it that way. One thing I can say about city life that is a little bit difficult sometimes is finding a house that has enough land for your cattle dog, because they do need to run. We really lucked out when we found this house that it had so much land where, you know, dogs can run. A lot of the yards around here are very, very tiny. I could not imagine my dogs being happy in any of those yards. But, you know, if you don't have enough land, that's when you go hiking and walking and be active. And just like I mentioned earlier, we have bad stuff here that happens too. There was a house that had 68 dogs that got dropped off to our local shelter because of a hoarding situation. There was another house that I drove by once. The guy had 30 cattle dogs because he loved them so much, because that's what he grew up with on a farm. But having 30 in a yard that's like a smidget of mine, like that just blew me away. But I'm not sure what happened with all those dogs. But anyway, we have bad situations here too. All walks of life have good and bad situations. Now, apartment living for your cattle dog. I know there are people on my channel who have cattle dogs in an apartment. Please hear me out before you come after me for what I'm going to say. When people ask me, should a cattle dog live in an apartment? My initial answer is absolutely not. And the main reasons I say no is because I do not know what level you're at on your dog training. I don't know your activity level, like how much you're willing to actually run, bike, walk, hike, whatever with your dog. And 2, I don't know the size of your apartment. Or maybe that's 3. Maybe those 3 reasons. Those are my main reasons I will automatically say no, absolutely not. Apartment living is a lot different. Like, I don't know, when I was living in an apartment, it was like single life. I was never there. You know, they're not the type of dog to leave around chilling for 10 hours a day. I know I saw one person with their cattle dog they rescue saying he's so happy living in an apartment. He spends 10 to 12 hours a day by himself just sleeping on the couch. I'm like, that to me is just a sad, bored cattle dog. Maybe I'm being too judgy on that, but that's what it looked like to me. Now, that being said, you know, I have seen apartments that are the size of my house in Europe. I have seen people call certain things an apartment when it's actually a house they're renting. I mean, people hear apartment and they automatically think that it's, you know, just this room, like the size of this room. There are apartments out there that are bigger or that I wouldn't actually view as an apartment. But that's another thing, like rental agreements with your landlords. I see people complain that their landlord doesn't want them to have a cattle dog, or they actually don't have a pet policy in their lease and they still get the dog and then complain that they have to get rid of the dog like that. That just doesn't make any sense to me. And you also gotta, you know, keep in mind too, if you're renting, whether it's an apartment or not, cattle dogs have chewed through drywall. Cattle dogs have, I saw one woman who was, she had like a rental house and the dog busted the window out on the top and then leaped out from it. There was another story in a Facebook group about this woman putting her cattle dog outside in a fenced area, and it jumped the fence and went and killed the Chihuahua next door in its fenced area. Grant you, some of these situations are just people with like no common sense or something, you know. I would never leave my cattle dog unattended in an apartment complex like that. I just no. Like, I feel like as many distractions as we have in the city, take all those distractions and put them in a compact little space like an apartment complex. Like, there's just so much that goes on sometimes living in apartment complexes. Like, and a little tiny patio I don't feel is enough. But I do have some very wonderful people on this channel who have cattle dogs, who are living in apartments. I know the one woman I used to talk to a couple years back, like her apartment looked huge, but she took her dog out every day for walks, multiple walks, like trying to give it what it needs. And the last thing I want to bring up is dorm rooms. To all you college kids, man, puppy, for all you college kids who are going out and buying cattle dogs and keeping them in your dorm room and then complaining that they're in there 10 hours a day and destroying the whole thing and you don't know what to do, rehome the dog. Don't get the dog in the first place. Like, common sense, for the love of God, common sense. Like, stop getting dogs if you're in college. Just stop it. They need stuff to do. You obviously do not have the time going to college and being collegey to do anything with the dog. I might give some leniency to the apartment people, because if they have it to where they can set up times for the dog to have like spurts where they're left alone in the apartment and then the rest is all activity with their owner, fine. But the dorm rooms, like, just stop it. That's where I'm just like, no, absolutely not. No, no, no. Like, stop. Those are just my thoughts on the different lifestyles healers can have. And I know there's going to be people that are going to disagree with me and be very upset by this video, by me saying it's okay to live in cities and suburbs and even possibly some apartments. But like I said earlier, I'd rather them have a loving home and have people be educated about what type of dog they have and how to give the best life to them versus them not having life at all. And like I've said probably a million times already in this video, there is good and bad in all lifestyle situations. I think the most important thing that we can do for this dog breed, well, any dog for that matter, is to give them all the love and to give them as much activity as we can, especially if they're a working dog. And you know, another thing to keep in mind, these dogs don't know any better. They have that urge to herd, but if they didn't grow up with it, how do they know they're missing it? Does that make sense? But I still would love to see Gypsy go after a cow, but maybe someday. And if not, then, you know, maybe chickens. We're still hoping. We're still hoping, because we're all kind of tired of city life. But even if the city is a country rust bucket, as the locals call it. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember to click like and subscribe. And I hope you all are doing well, and we will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Bye.